let's talk about J.K. Rowling, because J.K. Rowling is constantly a hotbed of controversy for opinions that are in many ways not controversial at all. She has views on biological sex that some people disagree with. Other people do tend to agree with her. But at the end of the day, it's all very boilerplate. And she agrees with liberal media and progressives, especially on 99.9% of issues. But apparently the one issue that she disagrees with them on is a sticking point, because there is a pop culture museum in Seattle, Washington that is scrubbing any mention of her, despite the fact that they're going to keep the Harry Potter.
Yes. This is because one of their employees, the exhibition's project manager named Chris Moore, posted a blog post called "She Who Must Not Be Named." Here's what he said about her.
Guys?
There is a certain cold, heartless, joy-sucking entity in the world of Harry Potter, and this time it is not actually demented.
Guys!
Thank you.
Have you ever seen those videos where people like they don't want to be the first person clapping, but they kind of like they clap longer because they want to be the last person to clap, and their hands get really yeah, it looks ruthless. Okay, continue on.
This blog post said, "We would love to go with the internet's theory that these books were actually written without an author, but this certain person is too vocal with her super hateful and divisive views to be ignored. Yes, we're talking about J.K. Rowling, and no, we don't like that we're giving her more publicity, so that's the last you'll see of her name in this post. We'll stick with you-know-who because they're close enough in character." I
love that the idea that you're like, to be soulless and joy-sucking in society now is just to disagree with somebody on one issue entirely.
Mm-hmm. Her transphobic viewpoints are front and center these days, but we can't forget all the other ways she's problematic. The support of anti-Semitic creators, the racial stereotypes she used while creating characters, the incredibly white wizarding world, the fat shaming, the lack of LGBTQIA plus representation, and super chill outlook on the bigotry and othering of those that don't fit into the standard wizarding world, and so much more.
Let's go through these one at a time. Shall we? Let's go through the first things first. What was the first thing she mentioned?
She supports anti-Semitic creators.
Do we even know who she's talking about in this context? Who is the anti-Semitic creator that she's talking about?
We might have talked about this at one point, but I'm not a psycho like this person, so I don't remember. Yep. The racial stereotypes she uses while creating characters is probably
the goblins. She's talking about the goblins in the banks. Look,
the white wizarding world just means that it was
UK in the 90s. Dude, it was the UK, and like at the time when here in America, Michael Jordan was on his legendary run with the Bulls. It was the UK in the 90s. And there was plenty of actual minority characters in that series. Is it to the extent that there is now? No, but Dean Thomas was a thing.
And she was woke for her own time anyway.
Yes, she absolutely was.
So she's a fat shamer? When did that happen?
I don't know what
I have no idea what that is referring to.
Mary's like, maybe these books aren't so bad.
Yeah. Lack of LGBTQIA plus representation.
Again, this is where I laugh because look, J.K. Rowling did this to herself. She courted this audience by changing her stories. So you deserve the audience that you preach to. And it's kind of like when I talk about Stephen Amell getting backlash for the writers for the strike, and I'm like, they courted this audience at the CW, so you get the audience that you invite to your properties. But all of this stuff is like, her posts are funny. Like, she does sardonic better than just about anyone. She does kind of dry British humor and dry British commentary as well as anyone.
I'm not personally a fan of hers. I mean, I don't really care for her. I don't care for Harry Potter, and I don't find her particularly interesting, and I don't think her opinions are all that interesting either. She's just what every feminist was prior to 2015.
Yes.
And I don't feel that much sympathy for the kind of woke backlash that she's getting now, because she was woke. She was the one that brought us into this insane time that we live in a way.
I do feel bad for this creator. His name is Chris Moore. He is the Seattle...
You feel bad for him?
Let me get to my point. I'm being sarcastic here in a way. It's like, I feel bad for anybody who can't separate art from artist, but then also allows something like this to be such an important part of their life, right? It's got to be a miserable existence to simultaneously hate the creator of something but love the creation so much that you're willing to head an exhibit about them, but the idea of even talking about the person who made it makes you sick to your stomach. Like, that has to be a special type of hell. I don't feel bad for him per se, but I acknowledge that that must be one really, really depressing existence.
Yeah. He said, I'm an individual who's been affected by her viewpoints. I'd love to see examples of how you were affected by J.K. Rowling's viewpoints. I'm an employee at Museum of Pop Culture. I'm also a board member for the Seattle Trans and Non-Binary Choral Ensemble. Okay, and a transgender Harry Potter ex-fanatic. I felt sheer joy and excitement of finding out that the next book or movie is coming out, and the heartbreaking disappointment from learning more about her viewpoints.
What's sad about this is like...
And this person says they started reading Harry Potter in 1998. Tell me for 1 second that you were woke on gender ideology in 1998, because nobody was.
Nope.
I do not believe you for a second.
Yeah.
And basically they answer the question, what does the Museum of Pop Culture plan to do about this? This says, if you visited the museum recently, you will have seen that artifacts from the Harry Potter films in her gallery and her likeness in the Science Fiction and Fantasy Hall of Fame have been removed. They're trying to dance around it, or they say that trying to dance around it would make them look like bigger hypocrites. But here's the deal. It's complicated. Long conversations are being had and a lot of considerations around what to do with problematic people and content because instances like this are going to keep happening.
I'm going to let you in on a funnier example.
Their curatorial team is figuring out how to deal with the fact that sometimes artists aren't good people, or sometimes artists don't agree with you on every political issue.
Here's the thing. They're children. I'll tell you why. Because there are still people. Here's the most extreme example of this that I can think to give you. Every year, when the WWE does its Hall of Fame induction, where they induct new wrestlers into Hall of Fame, invariably there is a discussion about whether Chris Benoit belongs in the WWE Hall of Fame. He had a legendary career. He was an infamously good wrestler. He was a famously good wrestler at multiple promotions, lots of legendary matches. There's just that little fact that he murdered his own wife and children. And people seriously have the debate as to whether they should put this guy into the WWE Hall of Fame. And there's the people who in their brain, in their logical brain say, look, that has nothing to do with his wrestling.
That's like, okay, but that's like debating about whether Hitler should have a Wikipedia page.
But what I'm saying is they're doing this on an even stupider level.
Yeah.
They're doing it on an even dumber level.
They're considering putting up in-gallery QR codes for people to scan to get context on the artist, to add context to creators and content about whether they're problematic or not. We learned that You Know Who was a problem, which is why you'll see the artifacts without any mention or image of the author. After all, Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint are all incredibly vocal allies. Should we forget their work now that the original author is terrible? I'm not even talking about separating art from the artist, but giving credit where it's due. Okay, Daniel Radcliffe has no credit in creating Harry Potter.
Nope.
Like, you're just piggybacking off of what someone else did. There's no credit to be given for Harry Potter existing.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with the books either. It also says, I'll never be able to purely enjoy Hagrid or Stephen Fry again because of their support of the author, but I'll always be a wreck when Dumbledore, no spoilers. You suck.
It's also like this was all at a time. These books were made at a time when representation wasn't the litmus test for like how good your series was to the general public. It just had to be a good story. It didn't have to have anything to do with representation. What's ironic is the guy who loves this story, he didn't need the character to be just like him. He just loved the story for what it was. I'm talking about the guy who runs this
Yeah, in 1998, I don't think feeling represented had anything to do with why he liked Harry Potter.
And if it's so problematic, then why did you like it? Were you problematic back then and you've just changed?
Yeah.
Or was it not as problematic as you make it out to be?
And it's also hand-wringing about the success of Hogwarts Legacy in this blog post. I'm just going to stick with Andrea Mew's take. Read a new book, grow up, get it in your head that you don't need to see yourself in every work of fiction you consume.
Yeah, it's a weird world that we live in now, where you have to see yourself. Like maybe we should be more self-hating. I don't want to see myself in my media.
Suffer in silence. Die young. It's the American way. Brett Dasovic, 2023.
Exactly. Like. At the end of the day, I don't go to meet, like, look, if I wanted to see people that looked like me, I would go to, like, what's the opposite of a big and tall store? Is there an opposite of a big and tall store?
There probably used to be.
Like, the point is like, look, if I wanted to see everyday people, I would go out into the world to see everyday people. I can go grocery shopping if I want to see everyday people and hear everyday stories. There's a place for that in the world. You don't go and watch movies, cinema, or read high art, read great literature to see everyday stories or to see yourself represented as a character. You go to see fantastic stories that are supposed to expand beyond your realm of initial comprehension. It's supposed to expand your mind, not meet your mind exactly where it is. Mm-hmm. Right?
I think a lot of the issue here comes from the fact that J.K. Rowling is alive. Mm-hmm. And if you're alive, then you can still be implicated for anything you do or say.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't see any, complaints about Lewis Carroll these days.
There's complaints about what's his name, the dude who did H.P. Lovecraft. There's a lot of conversations about whether we should glorify or support H.P. Lovecraft's work. That's why they made that show Lovecraft Country. That's why they made that show Lovecraft Country.
I just can't imagine caring. It's weird that they haven't done this to Tolkien yet. I haven't seen hit pieces about Tolkien because he obviously was a Catholic and a conservative and probably had a bunch of opinions that would be considered problematic these days. But they still want to cash in on all of his work and make derivative IP projects out of it.
That then sanitize it and ruin it for future generations.
But I haven't seen anyone complaining about Tolkien being a problematic bigot.
There's articles that are absolutely written like that. You'd see them in like the movie webs and all the trade magazines definitely have different takes like that.
They ended saying, of course, the work for diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility is a practice. You'll be seeing more signage in our galleries around harmful language and hateful, abusive, and divisive creators. We have ongoing conversations and trainings on all kinds of DEI considerations, which is also why I felt safe enough to change my pronouns and start transitioning 4 years ago. It's something we take seriously and will always be striving for improvement.
What is with the culture of safety that it's a little off topic, but what's with the culture of safety? Is that just because we're living in a gynocentric society now where safety is the ultimate concern?
Yeah. I saw this take recently that women will default to whatever position is secure, not the principled position.
Yeah.
Which is true. So if you're living in, I guess, a gynocracy or a matriarchy or whatever you want to call it, then all of the acceptable opinions to have will be the ones about safety, not freedom.
There's so much today that was like a serious concern that people were asking, right? During COVID, they were saying like, is freedom more important than safety? And people are like, absolutely. Yes, freedom is more important than safety because for the most part in the 21st century, like safety is an illusion anyways. In a lot of contexts, safety is an illusion. And you're a lot more at risk doing like I think about it every day. Like when I drive, I still don't necessarily trust. Like if I'm at a four-way intersection, I'm always double checking the dude who's pulling up next to me because I just have no faith.
I'm always locking my doors at any
that
stop.
Dude is not going to just run that stop sign and sideswipe me and end up killing me, right? But it's a risk that we as people in adulthood have incorporated into our daily lives. Like it's less scary because you do it every day, even though the risk is still high that something bad happens to you.
Yeah.
So
I saw this TikTok recently from a woman who lives in San Francisco where she was like, I'm literally shaking right now. I walked out of the grocery store and this random man came across me and he spit in my face and said, move, bitch, or I'll R-word you. And then someone made a comment about how this was racial, and she was like, actually, it was a well-dressed, professional, middle-aged white man.
I hate it when that
and you're
happens.
super racist, so I'm gonna block you.
Tyrannicide in the chat, he's racist. Freedom is just as much of an illusion. Yeah, he's not wrong about that.
We care about people's freedom to shoot up and menace people in the streets in San Francisco.
Yep.
More than the safety of the people who live there, who are law-abiding citizens. None of it makes sense.
Nope. And I don't know if what J.K. Rowling's feelings on freedom are, but I'm guessing that she actually probably agrees more with the guy who hates her on most issues than she does with the likes of you or I. On most issues.
Agree.
And it's sad to see like this happened to her property, but at the same time, she's taking a principled stance on an issue she cares deeply about and clearly doesn't have a whole lot of like care for whether...
I think her stance is incoherent. I don't think it's hateful.
Yeah.
I think it's incoherent because she was part of all of the social justice movements that led us into this like level of woke insanity in the first place.
Yep. She's one of the created
cultural...
one of the building blocks of that society, of that aspect of society that we're seeing right now.
She's one of the cultural figures that got us here. So I don't exactly feel so bad for her. She doesn't feel bad for herself. She's enjoying all of the money that she's made off of it.
I do love the idea that they see nothing wrong with the idea. Like this person very, very nonchalantly talks about just erasing their name from the work. Like that's othering someone. You're othering them.
Are future generations even going to remember that J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter? Is that going to be
one day
non grata? You cannot mention her.
One day, Mary, when I leave this, when I'm fired from this podcast and you take over, and it's just you rather than me, and then all the videos shall be erased in which I was ever in anything, and we shall henceforth be known as not Brett podcast. That's what you'll call it. You'll call it the Mary podcast, and then I will never be mentioned again. I will be othered in the same way.
The Dret Basovic podcast.
Exactly. That's a perfect name. I love it.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.